So one of the things that I said earlier on a couple years ago, when people were trying to administer the J juice onto someone that is an adult who is under the care of somebody else, you should not be administering J juice or trying to implement this protocol onto someone who is of adult age but who has not understood what to expect. Children are a different story, and minors are a different story, because that will be up to the parent and the doctor to figure out what the best course of action is and how to balance those two worlds of pain and equilibrium out. But I noticed when that one lady that came onto my Facebook that was saying that she was now going to administer the J juice to someone in her family that has cancer, like her mom, and that also she believes in starvation or intermittent fasting or fasting and also praying, I took her off the Facebook page because she's still exhibiting, obviously, a godlike status of applying something like J juice on someone who is dealing with cancer. And so anyone that tries to do this on someone who does not have the capacity to understand, you are putting yourself in a godlike status. You are now trying to save someone who doesn't have the capacity or the know-how to save themselves. And that's the fine line that I even have to deal with on my end, because I want to be a savior to other people. And that's naturally what happens with people who have been brought up in all of society, is to be someone's savior as well as destroyer. Because what happens when you apply something like JJ to someone who doesn't understand what it is, they won't follow through because the pain will be too great. And it's probably too much energy and too much of a lot of things that a third party or second party on a first person should not be applying to without the person who is having it being applied to understand everything about the JJ mentality. And so, but kids are a different thing. But when it comes to your mom and your dad and you are the legal guardian of an adult, it's not your place to save them. Because then again, you're taking on that unlicensed God-like status. Because this is the thing with licenses in our society, is that the government understands the deifying professionals, because even the government wants to be like they're trying to save someone, obviously, because we've gone into other countries and try to save them, and they haven't even saved themselves, and it becomes a very counterproductive process. Nobody wins. Same thing in the Vietnam War. They try to save the Vietnamese from the communists, and nobody won. Okay, so so taking on that responsibility of saving other people will be counterproductive, and so the licensed professionals, they have deemed themselves as licensed gods in our society, and that is the teachers, the doctors, the lawyers, the anyone that has to be licensed by the state, because there's very specific things you have to follow, rules you have to follow. Anyone that's licensed by the state is promoting a deity, demigod, godlike status. And so I want you to see this for what this is, even in the professional world. And so that's why I've been bagging and been targeting licensed professionals, even unlicensed professionals or unlicensed people who want to deem themselves savior to somebody else in body, mind, and spirit. Because what you're doing, again, is then taking on this position of being all-knowing and not truly understanding what it is that you're doing to somebody else, because the other person doesn't even know what they're doing, okay, or what you're doing. And so there's going to be that conflict. And so if you bestow yourself as to be the all-knowing person, to bestow this knowledge onto somebody else to save them or destroy them. But no, we're not supposed to destroy people in our society, or you go to jail. So if you're trying to save somebody, you're actually destroying them, because they don't have the knowledge to understand what the hell you're doing. They're just going to follow you and then perceive what you're doing. If they don't like what it is that you're doing or perceive it as that you are hurting them, then the tables have turned, and then they're going to resist you and then deem you as Satan. And so I've seen that dynamic firsthand, because in the beginning when I was promoting the J juice, and I came from the holistic allopathic world, the world of gods and demigods, or the world of demigods, and I was charging for my time because I was tired of repeating the same thing when I had the pinned post. And so someone didn't want to read the pinned post or the files, then I would say, okay, fine, for an hour, I'll charge you $75. And so I deemed myself a god. And it bit me in the ass when the person was trying to follow what I was saying and they really didn't understand fully and I didn't understand fully. Then they actually turned against me because they didn't fully understand. And so this is the double-edged sword when you deem yourself a savior, whether it's a pastor, a priest, a policeman, a fireman, a nurse, or a doctor, a homeopathic, a naturopathic, osteopath, any licensed professional out there, you're putting yourself on the line to be attacked. And that's the thing in all businesses. Even a licensed insurance agent. I'd put someone on a policy, maybe didn't realize that they didn't have certain coverage because I didn't ask or they didn't request it, and they get into an accident and they get mad at me because I didn't tell them they should get this type of coverage. So me being a licensed professional, not knowing everything that a person's going through, and I'm recommending coverages or recommending policies and all that stuff, and then they're just like, and then something happens and they didn't have the coverage, and I wasn't aware and they weren't aware, and I made assumptions and they made assumptions. Then the person you're trying to save from financial disaster is now in a financial disaster, and they're going to blame you. And that's why they have insurance for licensed professionals for, malpractice and omissions, errors and omissions and all that. And so, this whole thing of how our society is constructed, it's insane and it's crazy. And this is why you must, as an individual, must understand how everything works, or else you'll be subject to be in supplication to somebody else. And I love that word. I'm going to Google that word real quick. And that's why you have to understand how the law works, how everything works, how insurance works, how salt works. Oh, here we go. Supplication, actually, or asking and begging for something earnestly or humbly. Yeah, he fell to his knees in supplication, appeal, a plea, a solicitation, an exhortation, an urge, an entreaty. Okay, this is what slaves do because they don't know any better. When a slave has to go and beg someone to save them, whether it's a licensed professional or someone who deems themselves a god or demigod in their area of expertise, you've now put your life in someone else's hands. And this is obviously all over the medical holistic energy healing world. And that's why I have let go of a lot of my old moderators, because they naturally wanted to be the demigods. They naturally wanted to be the ones to be all-knowing, to be the ones to make the recommendations, and be the ones to have whatever the last word or the word that is going to be the last say. And on my page, I am my God. Okay, in my group, I am my God, but I really don't want to wield that kind of power. I want people to be in a very specific thought process, which is just to share their experiences and not be asking people to relieve their pain or to find a cure for their pain. I want people to understand that they must deal with this painful evolution if they want to achieve another level of awareness, okay? And so I realized even the moderators that I chose were all in those fields of being a demigod. And so it's a fine line again to be to drop information and then also wield it for manipulation. And naturally, when you're a mother or a father or a guardian or an employer or anyone in some position of authority, you are going to naturally go to that and love it, because everyone loves a follower. Everyone loves to have people just be like, oh my God, you're so amazing. I mean, I love it too. I mean, I can't deny that. I mean, I don't love being hated either, but those are two sides of the same coin. I mean, people are worshiping. I want, and the thing is my journey is to be equal with everyone, but still impart information without coming off like a god. Okay? That is my journey, is how do I impart information without coming off like I feel like I'm better and that I don't want to become like a godlike status. Because when you think about it, the Jejus will give you the godlike status. Not that you have to wield it and manipulate people, but you can be immortal like the gods back then that were immortal. But the reason why they're not living is because they were killed by somebody, because they couldn't stop a sword going through their heart, or they were subject to the conditions of the environment. Maybe they were unaware of how strong a tornado was, or not a tornado, or a hurricane, or they were poisoned. Or they were near a volcano. Okay, that's why the immortals are not around, because they weren't immortal when you think of like they were like this floating entity that was able to be like, oh, like the genie out of the bottle. No, immortals were the people that understood the power of salt and sugar. But the immortals also exploited their status, and they withheld information. And that's the issue with the Illuminati is the people who are not illuminated, who don't have a full picture of how everything works. And even the Illuminati don't know everything, okay? Because they're still dying and reproducing. I mean, look at the dynasties. Those are the Illuminati, are the dynasties, the 13 bloodlines. And they keep dying and reproducing. And so they haven't really achieved a godlike status when you think about it, but they understood how to use it. See, the Anunnaki knew how to enslave people. And then the chosen ones, which were the Jews of Egypt, they were the slaves of the pharaohs, and the pharaohs were probably huge giants, and they enslaved the Jews. Okay, and then Moses, and he was spoken to by another god of the Anunnaki that said, okay, we will free you from the slave as a slave of Egypt, but this is, here are the 10 commandments, and these are the things these are the rules you must follow in order for me to save you. And so then this is where the Jewish religion came from, and then all the different stories that came thereafter. And that's the Old Testament side of it. But when you are a master and a god, you were once a slave. And so just like the children, when children were being, abused or had power wielded over them for many, many years from a very lopsided parent, then they are like, okay, I can't wait to get out of the house and go have a bunch of kids of my own so I can lord over and repeat the same thing so I could have some kind of, status of being a mother and being the lord of the household and the matriarch of the household. And so it comes by naturally when you're a mother, because you have to then raise your children and be the goddess to your kids. And then the kids automatically then are like, okay, so if there's authority, they're God. So the policemen are God, the firemen are God, the congressmen, all the different licensed professionals are now the gods, because they are someone in authority. They have a degree, they have a license, they have all these things. And then people use that power and abuse that power. And then you look at all the different influencers out there, the ones that hate Klaus Schwab, the ones that deem themselves to be the Jesus of the world and want to save the world from Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum and from Alex Jones or from Biden or from Trump. I mean, the whole presidential system, the whole pyramid is all about worshiping someone that you think is a higher power, but really you hold all the power within. And that is that pyramid power dynamic of all the slaves at the bottom who are just reacting to the one that knows more things than not, but they're not going to give you all the information, but they'll let you react to all of what they're doing. So you have the Satans of the world, like they've deemed Trump. You see how they've demonized Trump on CNN. And then you see how CNN demonizes Biden. Okay, so each other is like a Jesus or a Satan on each side relative to your perspective. And then this happens in all organizations. This happens, I mean, it's so and then you're like, oh my God, you realize this is what our society has been platformed on, is this master, slave, teacher, student type of thing. And sometimes I feel drunk off my own power of knowing how to talk about this. But I'm so trying to get you guys to learn this too, so that way I don't feel like I'm some godlike. But then, you know, y'all have your perspective, y'all have your things that you're doing. But at some point, you know, I want humanity to understand this huge, and so that's why I'm writing about this. But I gotta figure out how to write about this, because this is like, you know, once you open up one rabbit hole, then there's a million of them that you have to go down, and this is where, like, oh my gosh, this power dynamic of a godlike status not only happens in religion and in politics and in science, but it's in families, it's in cliques. There's always a queen bee or a king bee. It's in associations, it's in foundations. It's in the PTA, where you have the lead mommy who's like, oh, I'm the all-knowing mommy, and that's like from Weeds. There was that, you know, the Stepford wife mentality of, there's a few Stepford wives that are like perfect in the way they dress and the way they raise their kids and their house and their car, and so all the other mommies are just glomming on and be like, oh, she's so great and she's so beautiful and she's so this. And so then there's this worship of symmetry and worship of beautiful clothes and worship of nice cars and worship of money, worship of things that elevate you, because you want people to not only give you money, but you want to feel some kind of status. And I get it. I mean, I understand that premise, because we all need money to live. It's not like I have a huge garden that can give me all the meat, milk, cheese, eggs, and fruits and vegetables and beans and all that stuff. And so there must be some part of you that has to tap into that godlike status, because you're starting a business, or you are a salesman in a business, or you belong, you know, you're trying to maintain someone else's business. And so you have to deal with vendors who look at you as the god that says yay or nay, that you're going to allow that person to talk to the head person. So you're then the key. Okay. So it's learning how to not use it for evil, but to use it for good, and to give people the opportunity to also achieve where you are. And if you keep rising, you bring people with you as you keep rising, and you give them all the information. You give them every single ounce of what it is that you did to get where you are. And I know people are doing that, but I'm telling you, the people at the top of the pyramid are not doing that. It's taken me to figure out how to talk about salt, because most of humanity, if not all, are afraid of the salt. You know why? Because someone kept it from you. They kept the power of salt from you. They kept the power of sugar from you. People are demonizing sugar all over the place. They kept the power of your own immortality from you. And so what I want to do is give people the opportunity, because you're all demigods. You're going to tap into, like, oh, I'm all knowing, so I have a degree and I have this and I have that. So you're going to lord and wield your power over the people that don't know any better. But then the other part that makes you half God and half mortal is the fact that you're willing to destroy yourself in the meantime of taking someone else's money. That's the demigod status of our society, because what made you a demigod is the fact that you were born from half Anunnaki of the gods and half human mortal that were bioengineered at the beginning of time. Okay? Because Jesus and Christianity are very new. They're new. Sumer was thousands and thousands of years before we had Jesus and Satan and Muhammad and Jehovah, or all these different icons. The Sumerians were the gods, the Anunnaki were the first ones that put this type of mentality, this dynamic, onto Earth. And the cavemen that were like the hunters and gatherers, relatively, I mean, they were intelligent enough, but it was the original gods that gave them all the knowledge of how to survive and how to be civilized. Because the 6 crowns of civilization was when man became civilized and organized. Before that, they were chaotic. They were still warring, but they were chaotic, hunting and gathering, and just, nomadic. Never rooted in any one place. They probably were at war with each other too, because that happens at a baser instinct. But then organization and civilization came through when the gods came down and came up and gave mankind, innovation and technology so they can make their life easy, and also mine for gold and support the gods that were in these temples. Okay? Like the pharaohs. The pharaohs they were immortal, but they weren't infallible. They made mistakes, and they aren't here. And Zeus and all the Poseidon, all the gods of different things are no different than the 7 gods the 7 original gods of Sumer. They just had the Greco-Roman spin on it, and then more innovation then were put through with the DNA, bioengineering. Okay, so biotech knew how to splice and dice viruses to then create different dogs, different people, different phenotypes. So you have your genuses and your species, and you had different phenotypical characteristics. And so, my dog has probably been crossbred, and so we have an American Pit Bull, the Staffordshire, and other types of pit bulls, and then you have the poodles, and those are all bioengineering. It's all splicing and dicing viruses under a specific genus of DNA, viral DNA, that has the very base, or like a prototype that you can then go and do the gene editing. So you can have like a big face and more muscles versus a skinny dog like a Dalmatian with the spots. And so that's the diversity, is the bioengineering, and that's probably what happened in the Garden of Eden. Okay? And so you see all the different stories in the Bible, and then even before that cuneiform was the first written text from Sumer, and they were very advanced, but there just wasn't a lot of things that we can translate easily from. But we have scientists and historians that were able to kind of figure out how to interpret what happened back then. But then now we're seeing that it wasn't Christopher Columbus that discovered America, it was the Vikings. And I'm looking at the houses that they built into the hills. I'm like, oh my God, this is Lord of the Rings, this is the Hobbit. And so, so there wasn't a lot of written text about the Vikings, but more about Christopher Columbus. And so really, who has the ability to write and to tell stories are going to control how people view history and how people are going to construct the future. And so with love and hate does put people in a godlike status. When you are loving or hating somebody, you've deified them. And those were all the deities, those were all the demigods in Greek mythology. Those were the humans that were the daughters, that were the sons and daughters of the demigods, or of the gods and the mortals, then they're demigods, and they had specific skills that people were worshiping, like Prometheus. I mean, just look up all demigods in Greek mythology, and they had specific skills that they were taught. Like Socrates was taught by somebody, by a woman. Where did she come from? Probably one of the original gods of the Anunnaki. And so he was taught logic and reasoning and the Socratic method of question and debate, and then learn different sides, but then force people to take a side. And then the emotions. Then you have the oxytocin. You have the fertility goddess, all about bringing up love, 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 as also the war of hate, 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 which then still deifies. When you love someone and you hate somebody, you have now elevated them to a deity. And those deities were the ones that had specific actions that elicited an emotion from the ignorant slave class. And so the ignorant slave class you're now watching, those are the influencers that love Biden, hate Biden, love Trump, hate Trump, love Klaus Schwab, hate Klaus Schwab. He's the leader of the World Economic Forum. And also too in religion, where you have Jesus and my mom said a long time ago, she said, Jesus was just a man. He wasn't anything special. Jesus was gifted certain things and saw things that he didn't like, but he was gifted things from other gods, just like anybody else, and had access to certain hormones that other people didn't have access to. But he wasn't, and he's not immortal. I mean, he may have lived longer, but he was used as a piece to worship and used as a method of control in Christianity. Okay? And so we see that in the churches. You go to like Peru, and you go to like Portugal. When I went to Fatima, oh my God, the architecture. When I was in Portugal, going to these huge worship sites of the Catholic Church, and it's very overwhelming. And yeah, you can't help but just drop to your knees in supplication and be humble, because the architecture, and especially if they were giants, then we see architecture, like maybe pictures on Facebook of pictures of architecture where it looks like the giants used to live there, because the doors were really, really tall, and the ceilings were like the soaring, like literally soaring cathedral ceilings. And so you knew that it wasn't, you know who stayed there. It was giants that were then being deified, and then the little slaves were the humans that were doing all the work and making sure the gods were all perfect and everything. And so now, as us humans that used to be slaves of the giants and those gods, we have the opportunity to be immortal, to be a god without exploiting that ability. But you have to understand that you have to understand both sides, all sides of an issue. But what makes someone a god where you love and hate is because you're taking a side. When you love the pro-vaxxers but hate the anti-vaxxers, you have just deified the anti-vaxxers, and then you're still destroying yourself, because guess what? You're still aging, you're still degrading, but you've taken a side and you've lined somebody else's pockets. When you don't take a side and you understand salt is what quells the aggressive energy, you have just taken money out of part of biotech's platform of revenue. You can still support biotech because they're splicing and dicing viruses to innovate humanity and give people, more like superhuman power, so to speak, and better abilities to adapt to specific situations. I mean, this virus right now is the baby of biotech, because biotech has also created animals. We have innovated animals. We have animals that have gone extinct, and then we have created new animals. And those animals drop viruses and all that stuff, and then they mix in with the human population, and then we have specific viruses that are now adapting to the human DNA, but then also causing people to evolve. People want to feel that. And so I am adapting to the biotech's construction of innovation. But am I going to stop the evolution? Absolutely not. I'm going to adapt to it. It means that if I'm going to, I have been feeling so amazing the last couple days. And I went out, like again, I went to Walmart and I didn't feel anything except for I haven't felt heat actually. The heat that I've been feeling has been lessened. Like I haven't feeling the heat like I did. I was sweating up a storm the last couple weeks. It was like, my husband's like, oh, you're just menopause. We know what they are. I don't know if he's like kidding with me or if he's like, I don't know. He messes with me a lot. So I know I can't tell if he's kidding or if he's just messing with me. But I'm like, it's not menopause. It's the fact that I'm feeling the viral energy of the upgrades. And if I do feel a drop in sugar because the body's using energy, I go and eat like some carbs. If I'm really hungry, I have these chimichangas I put in the microwave. They're in a package, or processed food. They're in a package, and I just eat it. And that's fine. I don't have to cook anything majorly amazing to feed the energy that's being used up by the viral energy from the heat. Okay, I've been running rather warm. It's not really cold out to me. Though it's getting a little tiny bit colder for me because I'm not as highly viral. I don't have as many viral transducers doing stuff. But I'm not freezing. Okay? And so I'm adapting to the technology, the innovation of biotech, but I'm not going to use biotech to stop the innovation. That's the demigod. That's the demigod status, is where you give something and you take it away. That's biotech playing God. That's the doctors playing God. That's your friends and family. They give you something and they also take it away. Okay? Because of the their lopsided way of existence. And it manifests in different ways, and you only know how that works in your world. But yeah, well, anyways. So this is just so crazy and interesting. So I'm going to, I'm in the process of really constructing now the bigger picture of all this, and it's still humanity 2.0. We are in a great reset. Okay? We are going to completely just eradicate, in my world, I'm eradicating the demigod status, because that is conflicting. Because if you're going to be a god, you need to be immortal, and that means you need to maintain existence and understand both sides of something, understand thermodynamics. That it's not just the one and the two. There is a three there, and that three is also factoring into the one and two's reactions to each other. But when you're taking a side to be, everyone should be vaccinated, or everyone should be not vaccinated, or everyone should be like away from organic or all about GMO, and when you take a side, then you don't see the bigger picture, and then you destroy yourself. And then also to those that deify someone, hate someone, or love someone, even though like I'm trying to give everybody all the bigger picture, the people still love me and they still hate me, which means that they're going to twist my words and still destroy themselves and then still blame me. Or someone's gonna, do JJ's, not really understand what it is, and they're not eating all the food in the food supply, and they're still dieting, doing so much JJ's, and because they love me and they love the JJ's, they love feeling the cure and not feeling anything, and they destroy themselves because they've twisted my words, because their emotions were either so cured they don't feel shit, or they had so much emotion that they didn't do anything that I recommended. Not that they should, but I mean, if you're going to follow me and take my information, there's certain recommendations that say, like, eat all food in the food supply. But you don't take my recommendation. If you hate me, you won't take my recommendations. If you love me, you'll overdo it. And if you're indifferent to me, then you'll just do what you do, and you'll be in your cured state in the holistic allopathic, taking your vectors and then dying along with everybody else. And so this is about just respect and understanding all sides of the issue. There's 3 sides to every issue. There isn't 2 sides to every. There's 3 sides to it. And you're the 3rd side. But if you fall into the for and against, you have lost credibility, not only to yourself, but you've lost credibility to everyone else around you, because you're playing in that war of I'm going to save you by destroying you. That's exactly what the medical holistic system does. The demigod status of I'm going to save you while destroying you. And you won't know the difference because you won't feel the pain. And that's what you think is saving you. But in reality, it's destroying you, because guess what? You're going to end up in palliative care and hospice at some point. Probably sooner than later, because this virus is very aggressive. And there's a new virus called the Marburg virus. So, I don't know, but you guys figure it out. But you don't need to be a demigod. You need to be a god, or just shut the hell up and do your thing and just pass away in the system. But don't try to save people with a vaccine or no vaccine, because you ain't saving anyone. Because you're on your way out the door just like everybody else is. All right, and you're lining somebody else's pockets in the meantime. All right, bye.